People, can you hear my voice? Online students, is my voice audible? Please confirm.
Yes, sir.
Please confirm in the chat box. Is my voice audible? Yes, perfect. Good. Yeah, guys, in the last session, we understood what is a framework and what is the advantage of going for framework and what is Spring that we discussed. Quickly revise what we discussed in the last session. So can you tell me what is framework? Come on. What is a framework? Framework is a semi-developed software which will provide some common logics required for several projects. So many companies are developing projects by using this Java. So every project will have its own business logic and every project will have some common logic. Instead of we are writing that common logic in every project, we can take the help of framework so that we can do more work in the less time. So there are two types of frameworks available in the Java. One is ORM framework and the second one is web framework. What is the purpose of ORM framework? What is the purpose of ORM framework? ORM frameworks are used to develop only persistence layer. We can develop only DAO layer by using ORM framework. Hibernate is one of the ORM framework available in the market. So to develop the web layer, we use it to work with struts framework. By using struts, can we develop entire project? No. Struts is used to develop only web layer. So that means in order to develop a project, we need to take the help of struts plus a Hibernate. But people are looking for one framework which is used to develop entire application. That's where Spring framework came into picture. So can I call Spring as a ORM framework? Can I call Spring as a web framework? No. What is a Spring? Spring is called as application development framework. Why Spring is called as application development framework? Why Spring is called as application development framework? By using Spring framework, we can develop entire application, end-to-end application development, front end to till back end, everything can be developed by using Spring. That's why Spring is called as application development framework. So who is the author of the Spring? Rod Johnson. So the first version of the Spring came into market in the year of 2004 from a company called Interface 21. Rod Johnson is the author of the Spring framework. What is the current version of the Spring? The current version of the Spring is 6.x version, which released in the year of 2022. Good. Now, when you see Spring framework, Spring is not a single framework, guys. Spring is developed in modular fashion. Spring framework contains collection of modules. Those modules are tightly coupled. Those modules are loosely coupled. Spring modules are loosely coupled. What is the meaning of loosely coupled? Spring is not forcing to use all the modules. Which module is required for you? You take only that module to develop your project. It's not mandatory to learn all the modules. It's not mandatory to use all the modules. So there are several modules available. Which module is required for your project? You take that module and you use that module. Spring is called as versatile framework. What is the meaning of versatile framework? Spring framework can be integrated with any other framework available in the market. Suppose your project development already started with the struts. 50% of the code available in the struts framework. You no need to remove that 50% of the code. You keep it in the struts only. The remaining 50% you can develop by using Spring framework. Spring framework can be integrated with any other framework available in the market. That's why Spring is called as versatile framework. So Spring is called as loosely coupled framework. Why Spring is called as loosely coupled framework? One module is not dependent on the other module. So you have flexibility to use any module in the Spring. It is not forcing to use all the modules, right? Now, here we have seen what is the Spring. Spring is a Java-based application development framework. By using Spring, we can develop end-to-end application. Can I say Spring is replacement for Java? No, we can't say Spring is replacement for Java. Spring is just an extension for the Java. Spring framework internally uses Java only. Now, it is developed by Rod Johnson. In the 2004, it came into market. That was 1.x version. The current version of the Spring is 6.x version. It is developed in modular fashion. Spring modules are loosely coupled. Spring is versatile. Now, what are the modules available in the Spring? What are the modules available in the Spring? Spring core module is available. Spring context module available. Spring DAO module. Spring ORM. Spring AOP. Spring WebMVC. Spring REST. Spring Data JPA. Spring Cloud. Spring Security. Spring Social. Spring Batch. Similarly, Spring Boot is also available. Can I say Spring Boot is replacement for Spring? No. Spring Boot is extension for the Spring framework. Earlier, people used to develop the project by using Spring, but today in the market, Spring Boot is having a lot of demand. So earlier, we used to develop servlets and JSP based application. Later, Spring came. Later, Spring Boot came. So with the help of Spring Boot, easily we can develop the application. If 20 lines of code is required for your task, that 15 to 18 lines of code will be provided by Spring and Spring Boot. You just need to write 2 to 3 lines, which is required for your business. So the common logics will be provided by framework. We need to concentrate only on our business logic. Are you clear with this? Good. Any questions, anyone on the yesterday topic? Yeah. So Spring is releasing new versions. Whatever the concepts are there in the Spring, same concepts Spring Boot will use internally. So whatever the Spring Boot we are using, Spring Boot internally uses Spring concepts only. So that means it is simplifying the development. No, directly we are not using Spring. We will use the Spring Boot. Spring Boot will internally uses the concepts of the Spring. Good. Fine, guys. Let's start understanding. So there are several modules available in the Spring. What is the purpose of those modules in our project development? In which scenario, which module we are going to use? Now you have idea what is the Spring framework and what we can do by using Spring framework. In the application development, where we are going to use the core module, suppose you are going to work on the real project. So in which scenario we need to use this core module? In which scenario we need to use the context module? In which scenario DAO? Which scenario AOP? What is the purpose of those modules? Let's try to understand. The first and foremost module that we need to understand in the Spring, that is core module. So Spring core module is called as base module of the Spring. This is base module of Spring framework. Without Spring core module, there is no Spring. So it is the very important module and the base module for all the other modules available in the Spring framework. It is providing fundamental concepts of the Spring. The main purpose of going for the Spring is because of its IOC container and dependency injection. So the people are attracted towards the Spring framework because Spring provided two concepts. One is IOC container and the second one is dependency injection. This IOC container and the dependency injection concepts are provided by Spring core module. Core module providing fundamental concepts of the Spring. Fundamental concepts of Spring, those are IOC and dependency injection. IOC and DI are used to develop classes with loosely coupling. So we are going to develop several classes in the project. one class should talk to another class. We have seen MVC architecture. Servlet will be available and DAO will be available. Servlet should talk to DAO. That means you need to create the object for the DAO inside the servlet. So that means one class is talking to another class. If one class is directly talking to another class, then those classes are tightly coupled. So how to develop the classes with loosely coupling? I want to talk from one class to another class. Assume that here I am having class A. Here I am having class A. Inside the class A, there is a method called M1 method. And here I am having class B. Class B is having M2 method. Now, M1 method wants to call the M2 method. Can you tell me how one Java class method can call another Java class method? Either you need to extend the properties or you need to create the object. So if I want to access M2 method in the M1 method, I'm going to create B is equal to new B dot M2. Can I call like this? Yes, this is called composition. One class is directly creating the object for the another class, but this is not recommended. If one class is directly creating the object for the another class, those classes are tightly coupled. Those classes are tightly coupled. In the real time, always our classes should be loosely coupled. So now, if I don't want to create the object, what is the other option to access one Java class method from the another Java class method? I need to extend the properties. So here, inheritance concept is available. Extends class B. If I extend class B here, can I extend from any other class in future? No. Why? Why? Class A is extending the properties of class B. Tomorrow, there is another class called class C is available. In the class C, there is a method called M3 method available. I want to call the M3 method also in the M1 method. Can I extend B and C at a time? Why no? Java does not support for multiple inheritance. So if I want to access one class method in the another class, either I need to go for the inheritance or I need to create the object. Both approaches are not recommended. If you go for inheritance or if you go for composition, your classes will be tightly coupled. Your classes will be tightly coupled. What is the meaning of tightly coupling? Tomorrow, if I modify signature of this method, this class will be affected. Tomorrow, if I modify the signature of this method, then this class will be affected. So always our classes should be loosely coupled. If you want to achieve the loosely coupling, you should not go for the inheritance. You should not go for the composition. Without using inheritance, without using composition, how one Java class method can talk to another Java class method? That's where IOC container and dependency injection comes into picture. Are you guys getting my point? So what is a project? Project nothing but set of classes. Multiple classes we are going to develop. One class method should talk to another class method. So what are the options we have? If one class method wants to talk to another class method, either inheritance is the first option. Second option is the object creation. If I extend the properties from one class in the another class, what is the problem? I am closing the gate for inheritance. In future, my class cannot extend the properties from any other class because Java does not support for multiple inheritance. Okay, inheritance is not recommended. Let me create the object and call the method. You can create the object, you can call the method, but what is the problem? Tightly coupled. Tomorrow, if I change this class constructor, then this line will not work. Tomorrow, if I change the signature of this method, this line will not work. So that is called tightly coupling. We should not do like this. Always we need to develop our classes with the loosely coupling. How to develop our classes with the loosely coupling? By using IOC container and dependency injection. If I use Spring Core module, class A, class B, I can develop. Class A can call the methods of the class B without creating the object, without extending the properties. then those classes will become loosely coupled. Are you guys getting my point? So why we need to go for this Spring Core module? Why we need to go for Spring Core module? To develop the classes with loosely coupling. I will prove that. In another 3-4 days of time, we will be able to access one class method in the another class without creating the object and without extending the properties with the help of IOC container and dependency injection. This IOC container and dependency injection concepts are fundamental concepts of the Spring framework. Why Spring framework became more popular in the market? Because of this IOC and DI. So by using IOC and DI, we can develop our classes with loosely coupling. So IOC will manage life cycle of our classes. IOC will take care of Java objects life cycle. Those are called as Spring Beans. As of now, we are calling our classes as Java class. From now, we are going to call our class as Spring Bean. What is a Spring Bean? The Java class, which is managing by IOC container, is called as Spring Bean. So now in the project, we are going to develop Spring Beans with loosely coupling by taking the help of IOC container and dependency injection. You can have 100 classes, you can have 200 classes also in the project. You no need to create the object, you no need to extend the properties. Still, one Java class method can talk to another Java class method by using this IOC and DI. IOC stands for inversion of control, DI stands for dependency injection. Inversion of control and DI nothing but dependency injection. Without having the clarity on IOC and DI, you can't understand the Spring, because these are fundamental concepts of the Spring framework. Are you able to follow me? Why we are going to use the Spring Core module in the project? Why we are going to use Spring Core module in the project now? Spring Core module we are using to develop classes with loosely coupling. How we are going to achieve loosely coupling? By using IOC and DI. What is the IOC? Inversion of control. The actual functionality of the IOC we can't understand now. It will take 3 to 4 days of time to understand the real behavior of the IOC. We are now just understanding theoretically what is a core module, where we are going to use a core module in the project development. Now, project means multiple layers will be available. As we discussed yesterday, UI layer will be available, and here web layer will be available, business layer will be available, DAO layer will be available, database will be available. Now, front end, user interface, here web layer will be available. This is our business layer. Business layer will be available, and this is our DAO layer. Persistence logic will be available. Now, web layer contains several classes. Business layer contains several classes. DAO layer contains several classes. Now, DAO classes methods we want to access in the business classes. Business classes methods we want to access in the web layer classes. That means one class should talk to another class. Spring Core module concepts we will use in the web layer, we will use in the business layer, we will use in the DAO layer. Why? Why? In every layer, Java classes will be available. One Java class should talk to another Java class. So web layer classes I want to develop with loosely coupling. Business layer classes I want to develop with loosely coupling. DAO layer classes I want to develop with loosely coupling. So then that IOC and DI I need to use in the web layer, I need to use in the business layer, I need to use in the DAO layer. Tomorrow UI also we are going to develop by using Angular framework. UI we are going to develop by using Angular framework. In the Angular also this IOC and DI is available. Not only in the Java, that inversion of control, dependency injection concepts are available in the Angular framework also. Anybody learned Angular? Basic idea? No? No. In the Angular framework also, we are going to understand IOC container and dependency injection. If you know Spring Web MVC concepts, within 1 week, you can become expert in the Angular, because whatever the concepts we are going to learn in the Spring Web MVC, same concepts will be available in the Angular also. For Java developers, learning the Angular framework is very, very, very easy. So here we are talking about IOC container dependency injection. Same concept will be available in the Angular also. We are talking about a business layer. Same concept will be available in the Angular. We are talking about a web layer. Same concept will be available in the Angular. So if you learn Spring Web MVC module within 1 week, you can learn the Angular framework also to develop user interface of your application. As I told you, Angular framework we are going to cover as part of our Java project. So if you see, 1 minute. If you see our course content for Java real-time project, let me open that document. In the Java real-time project, I'm going to explain AWS cloud concepts will be available. Can you see here? Angular framework. Angular concepts also we are going to cover as part of our project. Now here, how to integrate the front end and back end, how to integrate Angular with the Springboot, how to develop services. Services nothing but our business layer. Business layer will be available in the Angular. Good. Now here, IOC and DI. What is the purpose of the IOC and DI? What is the purpose of IOC and DI? IOC and DI are used to make our classes loosely coupled. What is the full form of IOC? IOC stands for inversion of control. DI stands for dependency injection. Right, good. IOC will take care of our objects life cycle. The objects which are managing by the IOC, they are called as Spring Beans. So now in the project development, where we are going to use the Spring core concepts, in the project development, in every layer, in entire project, Spring core concepts we are going to use. In the web layer, core concepts will be available. In the business layer, core concepts will be available. In the DAO layer, core concepts will be available. Next one, there is a module called Spring Context module. There is a module called Spring Context module. Spring Context module is used to manage configurations in the Spring application. To manage configurations in Spring application, we will use context module. Now, in our project, there are 100 classes available. There are 100 classes available in my project. Out of these 100 classes, 80 classes should IOC should take care. 80 classes IOC should take care. Remaining 20 classes I will take care. Okay, guys. So in the out of 100 classes, I want IOC container to manage the 80 classes. Remaining 20 classes are normal POJO classes only. I want to take care of them. Just binding classes, setters and getters are available. I want to take care of 20 classes in the project. 80 classes should be taken care by IOC container. How IOC will understand it has to take care only 80 classes. It should not consider the 20 classes in the project. So total 100 classes available in the project. Out of the 100 classes, only 80 classes should be managed by the IOC container. 20 classes programmer will take care. That information we should provide to IOC container through some configuration. We need to write some configuration. That configuration we will give as an input for the IOC container. Hey IOC, you take care of these 80 classes. I will take care of the 20 classes. So how we will provide the configuration to the IOC? To provide the configuration to the IOC, we are going to use a module called Spring context module. It provides configuration related support. It provides configuration support. It provides configuration support required for IOC. It provides configuration support for managing classes, right? What are the classes we are developing? Which classes should be managed by IOC? Which classes IOC should not manage? That I will take care. That information we should provide to the IOC container. To provide that information to the IOC container, we need to write some configuration. To write that configuration, we are going to use a module called Spring Context Module. What is the purpose of core module and what is the purpose of context module? Core module is used to manage the classes with the loosely coupling. Then what is the purpose of context module? Context module is used to manage configurations that are required for our Spring application development. Good. Next one. Here we are having a module called Spring AOP module. There is a module called Spring AOP. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming, right? AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. What is AOP full form? Aspect Oriented Programming. Java is OOP language, Object Oriented Programming. C is Procedure Oriented Programming. Procedure Oriented Programming, Object Oriented Programming, we know already. Now in the Spring, what we are going to learn? We are going to learn Aspect Oriented Programming. Spring AOP is one module in the Spring framework. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. Yeah, difficult to understand, right? So what is the full form of the AOP? AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. What is the purpose of AOP? AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. How many of you understand this statement? What logics? Yeah, to separate the logics, that is correct. What type of logic? What is the meaning of cross-cutting logic? Any idea? AOP is one module in the Spring. We know that. So AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. What is the purpose of AOP? I gave one line. AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. What is the meaning of cross-cutting logic? Error page? No. Error logic? No. Yes, correct. Online people, any idea? Not understood? Okay. Anyone from online? Anyone from online? Some people are asking about where to download the class notes. Guys, class notes I have already uploaded in our mobile app. Huh? No. I will show you now. If you log in into mobile app, you can go for study material. In the study material, you can see a course Springboot and microservice. The notes I have uploaded today. Log in into our mobile app. If you go to the menu, you can see free study material. Free study material. See Springboot microservice. Open that folder. Is there? Yes. The people who did not download the app, please download our mobile app. In the mobile app, we have free study material option is available. In that study material, yesterday notes I have uploaded. Today also, after the class is completed, I will upload that. Yeah, app you can download, iOS app and Android app, both are available. Once you log in into our app, there is a study material option. In that, Springboot course is available. In that, you can access the material. Online people, वो देता हूं मैं website पे भी. Yeah, I did not give the access for the batch. I will give that. People who are watching in online, Zoom, download our app in the mobile, Android. In the Google Play Store, you can directly search with Ashok IT. The people who are using iOS, Apple users, you need to search for the app with a name called My Institute. For that, organization code it will ask. CNFXJ is the organization code for iOS users. For iOS users, the app name is My Institute. You need to use the organization code as CNFXJ. You need to download My Institute app in the iOS. For Android users, direct Ashok IT app is available in the Google Play Store. Once you log in into the app, you can see study material. In that, Springboot microservice, in that notes is available. All of you able to access, please confirm. The people who are watching in YouTube live users. Yeah, 32 people are there. Good. Online students, please confirm. Are you able to access? Online users, please confirm. Are you able to access? Yes, yeah. People who did not download the app, please download, then you can access that material. In iOS, app name is My Institute. In iOS, the app name is My Institute. Organization code, as I have given already, CNFXJ. It is our organization code. With that, you can access that. All of you downloaded. Not showing notes, huh? Go to study material option, sir. You can see that. Okay, fine. Good. Let's understand what is the purpose of AOP module. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. So let me tell you what is cross-cutting logic in the application. Let us take a simple example. I'm developing banking application, guys. Assume that any application. Let me take one scenario. I'm developing banking application. As part of this application development, several classes available, several methods are available. There is a method called deposit method is available. In our program, there is a method called deposit method is available. So here I will write business logic for deposit method. So add the money to existing balance. So we need to deposit the amount into our account. To deposit the amount into our account, we need to write some business logic. I'm writing as B logic, nothing but business logic. Now, only business logic is sufficient for the project. Only business logic is not sufficient. Business logic is not sufficient. Along with the business logic, we need to write some security logic. We need to write some security logic, and we need to write some transaction logic. We need to write some transaction logic. We need to write some auditing logic. That means when this method is executed, when the transaction happened, how much transaction happened, we should be able to manage security for our project. We should be able to manage a transaction. We should be able to manage auditing, and we should be able to perform logging also. We should be able to perform logging also. Here, business logic is available. Along with the business logic, we are having some other logics also in our project. Okay, guys. Now, if I want to deposit some amount into a bank account, I need to write the business logic. Along with the business logic, some security is required, some transaction. कौन है भाई? Right. So if I want to deposit some amount into my bank account, along with the business concentrate, come on. Yeah, guys. Now see here. I'm trying to develop. Yep, I'm trying to develop a method called deposit method. That deposit method I'm using to deposit the amount into my account. Okay. Now here, in order to deposit, only business logic is sufficient. Business logic is not sufficient. Business logic is sufficient or business logic is not sufficient. Business logic is not sufficient. Along with the business logic, we need to have security in our project. We need to take care of transactions in our project. We need to take care of auditing in our project. We need to take care of logging in our project. So here, business logic is available. Business logic is called as primary logic. That is the core logic required for our operation. So the remaining logics are called as secondary logics. So now my method is containing primary logic as well as secondary logics are available. So by using primary logic and secondary logic, my operation will be completed. This is a deposit method. Similarly, let us take withdraw method. Let us take withdraw method. So for withdraw method also, business logic will be available, security will be available, transaction will be available, auditing will be available, logging will be available. Similarly, I'm having another method called pay bill method. In my bank account, I can pay the credit card amount. In order to pay the bill amount, again business logic will be available, security logic available, transaction logic available, auditing is available, logging is available. So method contains only primary logic or method contains the combination of primary logic and secondary logic. Now see here, my method contains only primary logic or my method contains primary logic and secondary logic. My method contains both primary logics and secondary logics. I have combined my primary logic and secondary logic. Can you see, is there any problem if I develop project like this? Is there any problem if I develop my project like this? How many methods I have given here? 3 methods. Assume that my project is having 1000 methods like this. In the banking application, there are 1000 methods available in the project. So many classes available, so many methods are available. In every method, primary logic is available, secondary logic is available. I have combined primary logic and secondary logic in the single method. Tomorrow, I want to change transaction logic in the project. I want to change the transaction management in the project. How many places I have to change? All the places I have to change. I want to update security logic in my project. How many places I need to change security? All the 1000 places I need to change the security. Here, if I develop our methods like this, primary logic and secondary logics are tightly coupled. Primary logic and secondary logics are tightly coupled. If I modify this primary logic, there may be an effect on the, if I modify the secondary logic, there may be an effect on the primary logic. If I modify the primary logic, there may be effect on the secondary logic, because both logics are combined in the single method. Are you guys clear with my point? So this is not at all recommended to develop the project like this. We should never combine primary logic and secondary logic. Why? Because in future, if I modify the primary logic, there may be a effect on the secondary logic. If I modify the secondary logic, there may be a effect on the primary logic. So this is not good practice to develop the application. But will anybody develop application only with the primary logic? Can I run my application with only primary logic? Simple example, you are transferring the amount from one account to another account. Directly, if I transfer the amount, is it sufficient? No. After 1 month, he will ask me when I have transferred, at what time I have transferred, how much amount I have transferred, from which account to which account I have transferred. We should maintain that history. We should maintain that history. So auditing is required, logging is required, transaction is required, security is required. Along with that, business logic is also required. That means a project contains primary logic plus secondary logic. Here, I am writing the methods by combining primary logic and secondary logic. If I combine primary logic and secondary logic like this, what is the problem? Come on, guys. If I combine primary logic and secondary logic, what is the problem? Primary logic is tightly coupled with the secondary logic. Secondary logic is tightly coupled with the primary logic. Tomorrow, I want to modify security logic in the project. How many places I need to modify? I need to modify in every method. Just if I modify the code, is it sufficient? Again, we need to test all the methods are working as expected or not. So there will be n number of problems if you go for like this, right? So this is not at all recommended by combining primary logic and secondary logic. Whatever the secondary logics that we are writing in the methods, these secondary logics are called as cross-cutting logics. Are you guys getting my point? So those are called as secondary logics. We can call them as helper logic. We can call them as cross-cutting logic. So earlier, people used to develop primary logic and secondary logic in the single method. If I develop primary logic and secondary logic in the single method, what is the problem? Tightly coupling. Tomorrow, if I modify my primary logic, then secondary logic may not work. If I modify my secondary logic, primary logic may not work. So those are the problems we may face in the future. So that's why it is not at all recommended to combine primary logic and secondary logic in the project. The secondary logic we are writing in one method, secondary logics we are writing in the several methods. Secondary logics we are writing in the several methods. It is not at all recommended to combine primary logic and secondary logic in the application. Then how to separate them? To separate the primary logic and secondary logic, which one we are going to use? We are going to use AOP. Can you tell me what is AOP? What is the purpose of AOP? Come on. AOP stands for Aspect Oriented Programming. What is the purpose of the AOP? AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. What is the meaning of cross-cutting logic? Secondary logic. Cross-cutting logics are also called as cross-cutting, or we can call secondary logics, or we can call it as helper logics. All are same. So example for them: security, transaction, security, transaction, logging, and auditing, etc. Sir, what is the security? What is the transaction? What is logging? Everything will come. Everything will come as part of our applications development. So now, for time being, remember that it is not recommended to combine primary logic and secondary logic. So when we are developing our application, for example, if I am going to use AOP, I will write deposit method. I will write the deposit method. Deposit method will contain only business logic. My deposit method will contain only business logic. My withdraw method will contain only business logic. Then what about that security? What about that transaction? What about that auditing? Everything we are going to develop separately. Here I'm going to develop security logic. Here I'm going to develop transaction logic. I'm going to develop logging. So these logics I'm going to develop separately, but these logics should execute separately. These logics should be combined with the business logic. This should be combined with the business logic. Now, when you develop our project like this by separating primary logic and business logic, AOP module is going to combine our primary logic with the secondary logic. I will develop my primary logic in the methods, separate my secondary logic separately. When we are running our program, AOP will combine this primary logic and secondary logic in the runtime, not at the compile time. When my program is executing, AOP will take my primary logic, AOP will take the secondary logic, AOP will combine my primary logic and secondary logic, and it will execute both logics in the runtime. But when we are developing, am I combining or I am separating? When I am developing the code, I am separating. Now, here if you see in the first option, I combined primary logic and secondary logic. If I combine the primary logic and secondary logic, what is the problem? Tightly coupled. Now, if you see here in the second approach, deposit method contains what? Only primary logic. Withdraw method contains what? Only primary logic. Where my secondary logics are available? Secondary logics are separated. I have developed primary logic in one class. I developed secondary logic in the another class. But how they should execute? Primary logic and secondary logic should be integrated. Who is going to integrate that? Am I going to integrate or AOP will integrate? AOP will integrate that. I will tell to my AOP, hey AOP, when you are executing the deposit method, you execute the security, you execute the transaction, you execute the logging also. At the time of the development, we are going to separate the primary logic and the secondary logic. But at the time of execution, primary logic and secondary logic will be integrated and the integrated code will be executed. Who is going to integrate that? AOP is going to integrate that. Tomorrow, when I change my security logic, these methods will affect or these methods will not affect? Will not affect. Why they will not affect? They are not in the single class. They are in the different classes. So the AOP is used to separate cross-cutting logics in the application. Now you understand what is a cross-cutting logic? Yeah, what is a cross-cutting logic? The helper logics that are required for our application, they are called as secondary logics or they are called as cross-cutting logics, right? So now it is not at all recommended to combine primary logic and secondary logic. To avoid that tightly coupling, we need to separate primary logic separately, secondary logic separately. But at the time of execution, primary logic and secondary logic should be integrated. Who is going to integrate? AOP is going to integrate. AOP stands for aspect oriented programming. Now, in the real time, several classes will be available. This method may give the exception. This method may give the exception. This method may give the exception. Is it recommended to write the exception handling logic in every method? No, right? So I will write my exception handling logic separately as a secondary logic. Exception handling is a primary logic or it is a secondary logic? Secondary logic. So in the real time for our project, exception handling logic will be available in one class. That class will be integrated with all the other classes available in the project by using AOP. In the real project, exception handling we are going to implement by using AOP only. Are you guys getting my point? Exception handling is the primary logic or exception handling is the secondary logic? Exception handling is the secondary logic. Is it recommended to write exception handling in all the methods of the project? 1000 methods are available. Is it recommended to write exception handling in all the methods? No. Exception handling logic we have to separate. But at the time of execution, exception handling logic, main logic should be integrated. Who will integrate that? AOP. By using AOP, we can separate primary logics and secondary logics. Secondary logic, what are the examples for the secondary logics? Come on. Security, transaction, logging, auditing, and exception handling. Exception handling also comes under secondary logic only. Good. So I hope now you got the clarity. What is a core module? What is context module? What is AOP module? Are you guys clear? Tell me, what is the purpose of core module? Come on. Core module is used to develop classes with loosely coupling. What are the main important concepts in the core module? IOC container and dependency injection. We can develop our classes with loosely coupling by using IOC and DI. What is the purpose of context module? To manage configurations required for our application. What is AOP? AOP stands for aspect oriented programming. What is the purpose of AOP? To separate primary logics and secondary logics in the project. Good. Next one, there is a module called Spring DAO module, which is also called as Spring JDBC module. There is a module called Spring DAO module, and that is also called as Spring JDBC. Spring JDBC, Spring DAO, both are same. Now, Spring JDBC is an extension for Java JDBC. Are you guys getting my point? Spring JDBC is an extension for Java JDBC. To simplify JDBC development, to simplify DAO layer, to simplify persistence logic development, we can use Spring JDBC. Now, if I want to insert one record into table by using JDBC, what I need to do? Come on. Now, here, JDBC logic. If I want to insert one record by using JDBC, what I need to do, guys? Can you tell me? Load driver, get a connection, create a statement, execute query, process the result, and close connection. Okay. If you are developing JDBC application to communicate with the database, you need to load the driver, you need to get the connection, you need to create the statement, you need to execute the query, you need to process the result, you need to close the connection. If you go for Spring JDBC, you just need to do these two things. That's it. If you write the JDBC program, you need to write all these 6 steps. You need to load the driver, you need to get the connection, you need to execute the query, create the statement, execute the query, process the result, close the connection. So now, loading the driver, getting the connection, creating the statement, is it different from project to project, or it is same in the every project? Same in the every project. Query can be different. My query can be different. Your query can be different. Now, when these things are common, why everybody should write in every project? That's why Spring Framework introduced a concept called Spring JDBC. If you want to communicate with the database, if you use Spring JDBC, you no need to load the driver, you no need to get the connection, you no need to create the statement. Spring will take care. Spring is providing a predefined class called JDBC template. There is a class called JDBC template. In the JDBC template, there is a method called execute method. You just give your query, execute it. It will give the result. You process the result. Remaining logic will be taken care by Spring JDBC template. That means, can I say it is removing boilerplate code? Can I say it is removing the boilerplate? Yes. Spring JDBC is removing the boilerplate code that we are writing to communicate with the database. So now, if you use a JDBC template, directly you can execute the query. You no need to bother about the driver loading. You no need to bother about the connection creation. You no need to bother about statement creation. And you no need to bother about connection closing also. Why? Because why? Spring JDBC will take care of everything. As a programmer, we just need to call the methods given by JDBC template by passing the query. It will take care of connection. It will take care of the driver. It will take care of the statement. You just execute the query and process your result. Remaining game will play by JDBC, Spring JDBC. Can I say Spring JDBC is the replacement for Java JDBC? No. Our project will talk to Spring JDBC. Spring JDBC will talk to Java JDBC. Now, what is the statement here? Spring JDBC is the extension for Java JDBC. To simplify persistence logic development, we can use Spring JDBC. Spring JDBC provided predefined classes. Spring JDBC provided predefined classes to perform DB operations. What is the example? JDBC template, named JDBC template, JDBC template, named JDBC template, etc. Like that, there are several predefined classes are available. Now, if you want to insert a record, create the object for the JDBC template, call the method. That's it. You no need to take care of all the 6 lines of code. You need to take care of only 2 lines of code. What about the remaining 4 lines? Spring JDBC will provide. That means some common logics are providing by Spring framework. You focus only on your business logic. So that is the main purpose of going for framework. What is a framework? Come on, guys. What is a framework? Framework is a semi-developed software. Why we need to go for frameworks? To simplify the development. Common logics framework will provide. Business logics we have to write. Now you see, query. My queries, your queries will be different. So you just execute your query. The common logic will be provided by the framework. You see the difference? 6 lines of code is reduced to 2 lines. The remaining 4 lines is providing by framework. Now tell me, in the company, will anybody use Java JDBC? Why? Why people will not use Java JDBC directly? If you use Java JDBC, 6 lines of code you need to write in every method. If I go for Spring JDBC, just 2 lines of code we need to write. So now when you use the framework to develop the project, our life will be easy. Our task will be reduced. Our effort will be reduced. Within the less time, we can do more work. Good. So we understood purpose of the 4 modules: core module, context module, AOP module, Spring JDBC module. Similarly, we are having one more module called ORM module. What is this, guys? Spring ORM. Right. What is Spring ORM? Object relational mapping. Spring ORM. So to support ORM integration, we have Spring ORM module. So Spring ORM is equal to Spring plus Hibernate. Spring plus ORM framework. So there are several ORM frameworks available in the market. Hibernate is one of the most famous and powerful ORM. If you know how to work with the Hibernate, then easily we can work with the Spring ORM. Spring ORM nothing but Spring plus ORM framework. Now here, if you are going for normal Hibernate, can you tell me what is the code you are writing? Configuration, create config object, create config object. Next one, create session factory, then create session, begin transaction, then execute methods, then commit transaction, close session factory, If you are developing your DAO layer by using Hibernate framework, then you need to create config object to load your data source properties, to load your entities classes. We need to create the config object. Once the configuration object is created, we need to create the session factory object. Then we need to create the session object. Then we need to begin the transaction. Then we need to execute the methods. We need to commit the transaction. We need to close the session. We need to close the session factory. If you go for Spring ORM, Hibernate template is available. Directly one line of code. If you want to insert the record into a table by using Hibernate, 8 lines of code you have to write. But if you go for Spring ORM, Hibernate template predefined class is available. Hibernate template dot save method, pass your entity object. That's it. How many lines of code we need to write to insert the record into table? Only one line. What about the remaining these lines? Session factory, session transaction. Hibernate template class is going to take care of that. Who provided this Hibernate template class? Spring ORM. So to simplify our persistence layer development with the ORM framework, Spring ORM module came into picture. So you no need to use direct Hibernate in the project. You can go for Spring ORM. So when you go for the Spring ORM provided some classes. By using those classes, we can develop the persistence layer. When our project is using Spring ORM classes, Spring ORM will internally uses Hibernate. Hibernate will internally uses JDBs. Now see here, I'm developing a project. So this is my DAO layer. In my DAO layer, multiple classes will be available. My DAO layer will talk to Spring ORM. Spring ORM internally talk to ORM. ORM internally talk to JDBs. Now see here, our application will talk to Spring ORM classes. Spring ORM classes will talk to ORM classes. ORM classes will talk to JDBC. JDBC will talk to database. At the end, if you want to communicate with the database by using Java, JDBC is mandatory. Without JDBC, we cannot communicate with the database. But directly we don't use the JDBC. We will use the ORM, Spring ORM. Spring ORM internally uses ORM. ORM uses JDBC. JDBC will talk to database. If my DAO layer directly talk to JDBC, what is the problem? Lot of code we need to write. Instead of we are writing all the lines of code, some logic is already available in the Spring ORM. Hibernate template class is available. My DAO layer will talk to Hibernate template. Hibernate template will talk to Hibernate. Hibernate will talk to JDBC. JDBC will talk to database. So the 7 to 8 lines of code is reduced to single line. 7 to 8 lines of code is reduced to single line if you go for Spring ORM. Spring ORM nothing but Spring plus ORM framework. Are you guys getting my point? Yes, good. So what is the difference between Spring JDBC and Spring ORM? What is the difference between Spring JDBC and both are used to develop persistence layer only? By using Spring JDBC, we are developing the persistence layer. By using Spring ORM also, we are developing the persistence layer. Then what is the difference between Spring JDBC and Spring ORM? Spring JDBC is the extension for Java JDBC. Spring ORM is extension for the ORM framework. Spring ORM module is extension for existing ORM framework. Got it? If you directly use the ORM framework, you need to write several lines of code. If you go for Spring ORM, with a single line, you can insert the data, you can update the data, you can delete the data, you can retrieve the data. So the number of lines of code is reduced when you go for Spring ORM. Got it? Yeah. Next one, another important module, that is Spring Web MVC. What is the purpose of Spring Web MVC? The name itself, Web MVC. To develop web and what is Spring Web MVC, guys? What is the where we are going to use the Spring Web MVC? To develop both web and distributed applications. Distributed applications, nothing but web services, right? To develop both web and distributed applications, we are going to use a module called Spring Web MVC module. Spring Web MVC, where we are going to use in the project? Spring Web MVC we will use to develop web layer in the project. Are you guys getting my point? Spring ORM, where we will use Spring JDBC, Spring JDBC, Spring ORM will be used to develop DAO layer. Project will use either JDBC, Spring JDBC or Spring ORM. Both are used to develop DAO layer. Now, when we are writing the primary logic and secondary logics to separate, AOP we are going to use. AOP can be used in all the 3 layers, right? Next one, to develop the web layer in the project, which module we are going to use? Web MVC module we are going to use. What is the purpose of Web MVC module in the Spring? What is the purpose of Web MVC module in the Spring? Web MVC module is used to develop both web and distributed applications. Now, earlier in the servlets, we have written request.get parameter. What is the purpose of request.get parameter? It is used to capture the form data. In the Spring Web MVC, you no need to capture the form data. Spring will provide you some ready-made code. You just need to write your business logic. Web application development simplified. It will simplify. It is used to simplify. It is used to simplify web layer development in the application. It is used to simplify web layer development in the application, right? So Web MVC module is used to develop the web layer. Then we have Spring REST. What is the purpose of Spring REST? To develop RESTful services, to simplify REST API development. What is REST API? What is REST API, guys? Distributed applications we are going to understand. To simplify the REST API development, there is a concept called Spring REST is available. Yeah. So what are the modules we have learned as of now? Just theoretically, overview. Core module, context module, AOP, JDBC, ORM, Web MVC, and Spring REST. What is the purpose of Spring REST? What is the purpose of Spring REST? to simplify REST API development. Spring REST is used to simplify our REST API development. What is the purpose of WebMVC? WebMVC is used to develop the both web and distributed applications. What is the purpose of Spring ORM? What is the purpose of Spring ORM? It is the extension for the existing ORM framework. What is the purpose of Spring JDBC? Extension for the Java JDBC. What is the purpose of AOP? To separate cross-cutting logics in the application. What is the purpose of context? To manage configurations. What is the purpose of the core module? To use IOC container and DI. What is the purpose of IOC and DI? To develop the classes with the loosely coupling. Similarly, there are few other modules also available. What are those? Data JPA, cloud, security, social, and batch. Right. What is the purpose of these modules? I will explain in the tomorrow's class. Right, guys? Any questions? Anybody having any questions? I will upload the notes there. AOP also I'm going to explain. Yes. AOP also I will cover. Guys, I'm going to upload the notes in the portal. Yeah. All of you, can you check it? In the app, notes is uploaded. All of you, can you check the notes is available? Are you going to cover Spring Batch also? Yes. Spring Batch also will be covered. Spring ORM also will be covered. Right. Spring Batch and Spring ORM also will be covered. Good. Yeah. In the mobile app, the notes is uploaded and class video also I will share in the app. Okay. Tomorrow I will tell you regarding the enrollment process, guys. Tomorrow class also you can attend with the same Zoom link. Tomorrow I will tell you how to take the enrollment to continue the classes. Perfect. All of you able to access the notes? Latest notes is available? Yeah, perfect. So tomorrow we are going to understand the purpose of the remaining modules. Good. Any questions, anyone from online? Notes is available in our mobile app. Please download the mobile app. In the mobile app, there is an option called study material. In that study material, you can access the notes. Perfect. Class notes is uploaded in the mobile app. Okay. Fine, guys. Thank you, guys. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll continue in the tomorrow session. With this, I'm stopping for today. We'll continue in the tomorrow session. Tomorrow class also on the same Zoom link. Thank you. Fine. With this, I'm stopping. Offline people, any questions? Huh? What is REST? Now, REST is used to establish communication between two applications. Now, you are doing Google Pay. Your Google Pay, you are transferring money to your friend account. Your account is SBI. My account is Axis Bank. So amount is coming from SBI bank application to Axis Bank application. One project is communicating with the another project. To establish communication from one project to another project, we need web service as a mediator. So that web service we can call as a RESTful services. RESTful services are used to establish the link from, establish the communication between two applications. When you are applying for a passport, you will enter Aadhaar card number. Passport application will talk to Aadhaar card application to verify your Aadhaar number is valid or not. How passport project will talk to Aadhaar project? Through RESTful service. Right? Got it. That is security purpose. RESTful services to integrate two applications. Yes, one application will send a request to another application that will process the request. It will send the response back to your application, right? Yeah. It is not for performance. It is for luxury. It is for the luxury, right? Right. Internally, 1,000 lines of code will execute. But we don't need to write the 1,000 lines of code. We'll write 5 to 6 lines of code. Those 5 to 6 lines of code will execute 1,000 lines in the background. It will make your project slow. Right. Yeah. Any questions? No need to do that. Now, configuration is the old approach. Annotations you are going to see. Yeah. Once we develop Spring application, you will get that clarity. Right. Fine. Next one. Any questions? Spring Security, Spring Cloud, it is part of the syllabus. Online students, without Spring Security, what is the use of learning the Springboot? Right? Spring Security also will be covered. Spring Cloud will be covered. Spring Batch will be covered. Everything will be covered. Don't worry. You can see the syllabus document. You can download from there. Everything will be covered, which is mentioned in the document. Recorded videos. Yeah. Pavan Kalyan, recorded videos you can get for 10,000 rupees. Yeah. Tomorrow I will discuss about the fee structure. You guys can attend the project tomorrow. Same class tomorrow with the same Zoom link. Fine. Thank you. I'm stopping for today. Thank you guys. Any other questions? As of now, what clarity you got? Just 2 days, 3 days completed, right? 2 days or 3 days? 3 days. So what clarity you got in the 3 days of time? What you understood? Spring framework contains several modules. Each module is having its own purpose. Each module is having its own purpose. Is it mandatory to use all the modules? If I am using Spring ORM, Spring JDBC required? Is Spring forcing to use Spring AOP? Is Spring forcing to use WebMVC? No. Whichever the module is required for you, you take that module to develop your project. But mostly people are using all the modules of the Spring in the project because they are very, very powerful and they are very, very useful also. If I want to develop a web application by using Spring, which module I have to use? If I want to develop a web application by using Spring, which module I have to use? WebMVC. I want to develop DAO layer by using Spring, which module? Either JDBC or ORM. I want to separate primary logics and secondary logics. I want to separate primary logic and secondary logic. AOP module I have to use. I want to make my classes loosely coupled. Spring core module. I want to manage configurations required for the project. Spring context module. I want to develop RESTful services in the project. Spring REST module we are going to use, right? So what are the other modules that we should understand? Data JPA, cloud, security, batch, social, like that there are several other modules also available. Good. Tomorrow we are going to understand this. Fine guys, thank you. With this I'm stopping. We'll meet tomorrow. Bye-bye. Tomorrow class at same timing. 5 to 7 class will be there. Yeah.